One of the biggest problems people who are depressed have is their inability to actually deal with their emotion, and most importantly, how to deal with grief, which is under all other negative emotions. So, what is grief and why is it causing people to be depressed? To put it as simply as possible, grief is the loss of love. So, when you lose something that you love, like a person, an identity that kept you safe, or anything of that nature, a pet, something like that, which you love, and you lose it, the way you heal from that is by actually grieving it. Now, there's 5 stages of grief that you need to know about in order to be able to dissolve it and then move past it. Because grief in and of itself is not a bad thing, but when we don't actually process it, then it turns into depression, it turns into anxiety, it turns into poor self-worth, it turns into addiction, all of these things. So when we actually go through a loss and then we go through the grieving process, we still love that person, but we're no longer completely distraught, and we've come to a place of acceptance, which is actually the last part of the grieving process, and then we can actually move on, still having that person in our heart or that thing in our heart, but we have moved on, and it's no longer running our life and making us miserable. Now, the first stage of grief is denial, which is pretty self-explanatory. You just don't believe it, you reject it, you're like, nah, this is it can't be true. After that becomes anger. You're just angry at the fact that that loss happened, or you've been betrayed in that manner, or you just lost like love or a relationship that you thought you once had, and you're just angry about it. Then comes bargaining, where you start to bargain with reality, where like if I can do this, then maybe this can happen. If I do this, maybe this can happen. What you see is in a lot of cases that's useless. It's just you're trying to cope with loss. Then after you just get really depressed and sad about the fact that you had loss. This is the part that most people are afraid of. Most people are afraid that if they go into sadness, they'll never come out, or it's going to be too overwhelming, or that sadness makes them weak. And this can go for all other emotions as well. There can be shame and guilt trapped around that emotion, so they don't actually access it, so they reject it within themselves, which cuts the grieving process and which also stunts emotional growth. So if you cut your emotions off at a certain age because it was too painful for you to experience it, then you're essentially stuck at that emotional age and you can't actually grow. So once you get through the sadness and the depression, which is just something you need to express, like you just need to process and allow to move through you, and you might cycle through these stages. Um, while you're going through a guilt, you may jump back and forth, back and forth. It doesn't have to be a linear cycle, but once you go through the sadness, then you come through the other side of acceptance. So it's not like you're happy about it. It's not like you like it, but you just understand that this is how life is. This is the way life went, and you just accept it for how it is. And being able to dissolve the blocks that are stopping you from going through this completely natural process. A lot of times it's shame, guilt, and self-hate. These three things, and also like emotional addiction. So if you're addicted to feeling anger, or if you're addicted to feeling a certain type of emotion, you'll prefer that emotion and not go into these other ones, because by actually healing, you'll subconsciously you'll know that you'll have to let go of the anger and move towards acceptance. So you'll sabotage your ability to actually heal. But once you go through this process and you do it over and over again through all the things that happened in your past, you'll start to feel very light. You'll start to be very free, less self-critical, and as you start to heal, you'll start to just become better in all facets of life, and it'll bleed into every single area of your life, and you'll just become a better human. You'll feel better. You'll be more compassionate, more loving, more able to experience the lighter side of life. Because when you cut off your negative sides, or I don't even like to call them negative because they're not negative, they're just darker. So we'll just call them, when you cut off your darker emotions, you also cut off your lighter emotions, which subsequently I hear all the time is like, I feel like a robot. I'm completely monotone. I can't relate. I don't feel emotions. I just feel like a zombie. That is why, because you're not actually allowing yourself to feel and to grieve and to heal. So, with that being said, Hope this video was helpful. If it was, leave a like and follow for more content like this.